In a quiet town, the Clemens brothers, Empt, Frank, and Rufus, set out to rob the local bank in the middle of the night, while the staff sleeps in the nearby station. They manage to carry out the robbery, but a clerk activates the alarm and wakes the guards. Rufus gravely wounds the man, and his brothers take out the rest. Amid the chaos, Empt unintentionally takes Rufus's horse, causing irritation. Frank suffers a leg injury during the escape, and pursued, they run across the fields, seeking refuge at a horse ranch. Hungry and tired, Empt decides to steal food and fresh horses. While Frank advocates moderation, Rufus opposes, but Empt sides with Frank, silencing Rufus's objection. Unexpectedly, they encounter Jim Calder, the ranch owner, who welcomes them cautiously. He allows them to rest their horses, but soon meets his end at Rufus's hands. Enraged by Rufus's impulsiveness, Empt orders him to cook in their victim's house. Despite his disparaging comments, Rufus complies, and inside he encounters Jim's wife, Hanny, and alerts his brothers. Hanny tries to defend herself but is subdued. Attracted to her, the brothers spend the day with her, and drunk, they leave. The next morning, leaving the house in flames, she finds Thomas Price in an abandoned well. At first, Hanny distrusts him, but Thomas disarms her, receiving a blow to the head in return. Upon going through Thomas's belongings, Hanny discovers a corpse on one of his horses. She decides to learn from him and begins training with his weapon. Thomas warns her against vengeance and departs. Hanny, offering herself in return, persistently follows him. Feeling compassion for her, he offers her a hat and a canteen before leaving again. Despite her efforts, the determined woman follows and catches up with him as he sets up camp. Later that day, Thomas spends the night watching over Hanny as she sleeps. And when she wakes from a nightmare, he comforts her, deducing the horrors she has endured. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Empt tends to Frank's wounded leg while they rest in the desert, blaming Rufus for their situation and their father's death. The brothers argue until they see a patrol approaching, forcing them to flee. Back with Thomas and Hanny, he provides her with spare clothing and plans to take her to Mexico to obtain a firearm. They travel together until they reach a town, where Hanny discovers the truth about her husband's killers from the sheriff. Thomas gambles in the saloon while Hanny speaks with the sheriff, causing a stir among the customers when she mentions Thomas's name. Recognizing his identity, Thomas acts quickly, taking out a man who poses a threat. He then presents the body to the sheriff for a reward. Despite initial skepticism, the sheriff pays, acknowledging Thomas's reputation. They continue their journey, with Thomas revealing his plan to meet Bailey, a weapons maker in Mexico. Bailey welcomes them into his home while the Clemens brothers struggle to survive in the desert. While Bailey crafts a weapon for Hanny, Thomas begins her training. When Bailey detects Thomas's growing affection for Hanny, Thomas remains unaware. After days of training and crafting, Bailey tests the weapon he made, but his attitude changes when a stranger gives him a gun to inspect. Discovering a recent modification, Bailey becomes concerned. Later, he presents Hanny with her personalized weapon, stressing its use. Thomas instructs her on proper handling before they practice shooting together. Despite her frustrations, they continue until sunset, sharing a moment by the shore. Days later, Hanny watches Thomas with Bailey's children, leading her to reflect on Thomas's true nature. Her peace is interrupted when bandits attack, forcing Thomas and Hanny to defend the house. In the heat of battle, Hanny hesitates, needing Thomas's intervention. After the confrontation, the surviving bandits flee. Meanwhile, the brothers' attempts to rob fail, forcing them to flee again. Bailey bids farewell to his friends as they depart, unaware of the preacher's observation, while passing by an abandoned prison. Arriving at a town where the brothers are headed, Thomas discourages Hanny from seeking vengeance, but she remains determined. Their argument intensifies, leading to a painful separation when Thomas leaves, leaving Hanny in tears. Thomas steps out of the hotel, but he stops upon seeing the Clemens brothers arrive. He watches as the brothers continue arguing over their lack of funds. Empt and Rufus head to the saloon, while Frank gets a haircut. allowing Thomas to confront him alone and catch him off guard. The bounty hunter orders him to disarm before showing him his own wanted poster. Frank has 1,100 bounty on his head, so Thomas invites him to go peacefully to the sheriff's office. Just then, Empt and Rufus come out of the saloon and see them. Empt raises a gun to throw it to the bounty hunter, but Thomas quickly draws his pistol and fires. Empt throws the weapon before dodging the bullet that hits Thomas in the stomach. This allows the brothers to escape. Hearing the shot, Annie looks out the window and sees Thomas collapse. She runs to help him, and with the townspeople's aid, they take him back to his hotel room to rest. Crying, Annie admits she's a terrible liar, and Thomas jokes that she's also terrible with guns. He warns her that the brothers will hurt her, so with his dying breath, he asks her to promise not to go after them. Before she can answer, the Mandees and Hanny can only weep for him. Despite her mentor's wishes, the woman refuses to back down. She soon heads to the saloon, where she asks the bartender about the Clemens brothers. The man replies that he only knows where Frank is, and that he's upstairs in one of the rooms. Annie immediately goes upstairs and forcibly enters Frank's room, where she finds him with a companion. Despite having the advantage that he's unarmed, she decides to make it a fair fight and tosses him his gun belt. When she declares she will kill him, Frank laughs. The two face off, and Hanny manages to draw her gun and fire first, but Frank wounds her shoulder. With the memory of Thomas's encouragement and the horrors the brothers inflicted upon her, anger drives. Hanny and she fires again, sending Frank through the window to his end. Soon, the town sheriff gives Hanny the reward for taking down Frank while they tend her wound. The woman then returns part of the money to fund the criminal's funeral. Having learned to show respect for the fallen from Thomas, the sheriff warns her that Frank's brothers will find out what she's done, but Hanny is unfazed. After burying Frank, his brothers visit his grave. Empt is furious and wants immediate revenge. Noticing some diggers nearby, Empt pushes his brother to find out what they are doing. Rufus soon reports that a woman paid the diggers to prepare 2 more graves. Knowing it's the same woman who took out Frank, Empt concludes she's still in town. In town, a recuperating Hanny enjoys her reward and buys some perfume. However, Rufus passes by and quickly recognizes her. He confronts her with a gun, but Hanny shows no fear. Rufus taunts her, recalling the time they spent in her old home, then orders her to accompany him to see Empt so they can enjoy her company again before harming her. With a swift move, Hanny fires the gun she had hidden in her sling and takes Rufus down, finishing him off. Afterward, she collects her reward, but this time leaves enough money for 2 burials, confident that Empt will soon join his brothers. Recognizing how dangerous her thirst for vengeance is, the sheriff orders her to leave town before innocent people get involved. She wonders why he never kicked her out before. The sheriff states that they were just wanted fugitives who didn't bother anyone in his town until she started the fight. Enraged, Hanny tells him to send Empt to the abandoned prison nearby so they can settle their score without disturbing anyone. As she leaves, the sheriff comments that she is a tough woman. Hanny replies that there are no tough women, only weak men. Afterward, Hanny leaves the town and heads to the abandoned prison. Meanwhile, Empt learns of Rufus's demise and that Hanny is leaving money for his funeral. Offended, he takes part of the money intended for his funeral and heads to the prison. As he leaves, the sheriff tells him to make the woman's death look like self-defense. Empt reaches the prison as the wind starts blowing harder. Seeing the place calm and empty, he searches the area, weapon ready. Suddenly, a shot is fired from afar but misses. The fugitive Hanny is hiding somewhere in the facility, so Empt keeps looking for her. He climbs the guard posts and looks around, eventually noticing a shadow moving in the distance. Assuming it's his enemy, he heads in that direction and finally finds Hanny, who still doesn't know his location. Instead of using his gun, Empt silently takes out a knife from his jacket and prepares to throw it. Another shot knocks Empt's knife away. The preacher appears behind one of the beams, having saved Hanny's life. Then, the preacher holsters his gun, as if urging both of them to settle their duel fairly. With that, Hanny holsters her own weapon, waiting for Empt to do the same. However, the man laughs at her, finding it amusing that a woman challenges him. As he does, Hanny recalls everything Thomas taught her. The moment Emp's hand reaches for his gun, she fires hers, and he falls down the stairs. Hanny remembers the atrocities the man committed against her, driving her to shoot him again, ending his life and her vengeance. Despite her victory, Thomas's warning that she would lose herself after completing her revenge echoes in her mind. Accepting that her life has changed forever, Hanny returns to town carrying Emp's body to claim her reward, following in her mentor's footsteps as a bounty hunter. If you liked the video, show me by giving it your valuable like, and I'll personally greet the first comments. I leave you with 2 new summaries, and see you soon.